Now the hour of 3:03 has arrived. We're going to open this workshop meeting of the Board of Directors of the Vallecitos Water District. And I don't assume there's any oral communications, so seeing that, we'll go right to our discussion item, which is district outreach and communication, and we will have Dennis Lamb bring us into it.
Yes, thank you, Chair Martin. You all, let me start with some of the introductions. You have Patsy Tennyson here, who you've all met because you worked through it, and Tina Malat is in the back. She's here with her today, and she's going to, I think, be recording and taking care of everything we discuss and talk about today. That's Betty Evans. And then staff. Just to introduce everybody. What we're here today is the board's had desire over the past few months to move forward with developing some additional outreach at the board level and develop kind of a standard. To help move that forward, we did bring in Patty. Is it Patty? Is that okay? Patty, Patricia, Patsy, to interview the board. And you have a copy of the compilation of all the information that she did provide and get from you. So we already provided that to you. And the goal today, I think, is just to have a good conversation with the board as to exactly where you want to go, specifics that you may have. There are some recommendations. Patty will go through a presentation and have some lists, items specifically for the board to consider. And then I think what our goal is by the end of the day to walk away from is a fairly whittled down list of the priorities the board wants to look at. My goal would then be to take that, probably starting next week, and develop a more detailed scope of work, get proposals, come back to the board as quickly as I can, saying, okay, here's what the board asked for, here's how we can do it, here's some costs associated with it, are you guys ready? And then we move forward. That's kind of the general direction I'd like to walk away from today, if that works for the board. Patricia does have a presentation she'll walk you through, and I think it'd be open to questions as you go, and then maybe at the end, whatever your preference is on that. And with that, if it's okay with the board, I would turn it over to her.
Great, thank you. One question, Patricia. Would you rather us stop you as we have the question, or you want us to wait to the end?
Well, you know what? I would probably want to be stopped because I might not remember the question, but you
Great.
all are pretty sharp, and so you can do it either way. It doesn't matter.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
It doesn't matter. Either way you want to go. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you again. And I want to thank you for taking time a couple of weeks back to sit down and talk with me. It was very interesting and very, very helpful. Today we're going to talk a little bit about, well, first just reiterate what the purpose of the workshop is, and then have a quick review of the feedback that I got from talking with each of you. Maybe you'll have some questions of clarification along in there, or maybe not. And then we'll talk a little bit about how, if you want to refocus your communication program, how you might want to do that. I gave you some draft recommendations to think about, to consider. And so I'll go over those and answer any questions you might have about that. And then hopefully we'll all walk away with a list of next steps so we'll know who's doing what and by when. The purpose of the workshop today, at least as I understand it, is to determine and develop the outreach program and how to allow consistent messaging by the board and staff. So when you're out talking to people, everybody is on the same message. To consider some other modifications or changes to your existing communication program, and all with the goal of improving and achieving greater benefits, not only for the district, but for your customers. When we talked at the end of June, I want you to know that it was interesting to me, might be to you, that I heard a lot of very consistent comments. I might not have heard the same response on every question, but sooner or later, through the time that we spent together, I heard a number of things. You all expressed that you thought the district was very well managed and operated, and you feel good about that, as well you should. That the district staff is competent, they're good at their jobs. That they have many good outreach programs, and you want to continue the good outreach programs. But you also want to see some continual improvements in those programs, and it seemed to me that you all thought the outreach program would be even better if there were more focus on ratepayers. Every one of you at some point in our conversation said, I think we should be out talking to customers more. I think we should be out talking to ratepayers more. And you were fairly consistent about what you wanted to discuss with your ratepayers. I also heard a lot of consistency and consensus about the priorities for the district: to provide high-quality water and sewer service and do that at a reasonable cost, to operate efficiently, continue to operate efficiently, to continue to be fiscally prudent, and importantly, to plan for the future to ensure that there are adequate, especially adequate water resources. So as to what you wanted to do related to ratepayer outreach. Again, I heard all of you say that you wanted to foster a greater understanding and awareness about some specific things. What this district does. We all know, if we've been in the water industry for a while, that it's complex, it's sometimes difficult to talk about because of the level of complexity, but you really want people to know a little bit more about that, or feel like you're at least doing your part in telling people more about that. Where does their water come from now? What does it take to get that water to them? They all turn on their taps every day. You know, I took a shower this morning. There's no problem with the water supply, right? But what are our future plans as a district? What are we going to do? And does the future look anything like the past, or are we going to have to make some changes and do some additional things in the future? And of course, water use efficiency or conservation was an important theme, and all of you echoed that. Now, as you look toward what you can do to refocus your communication or your outreach program, if that's what you want to do, I thought of several things that might be helpful to you. And one is to update your communication plan. The draft of the communication plan that I saw was from 2010. I believe that's the most recent one. And I thought that it could use some updates, that it could be better if you did a few things to it, such as have some actual key messages that you stated that you're all embracing, that you talk about what kind of outreach strategies you're going to use to talk with various audiences in your service area, that you include maybe some kind of a rapid response plan, because things hopefully always go exactly as you expect, but in the off chance that they don't, you know, think ahead and know what you're going to do in that case. And make sure that that communication plan gets updated really annually is best, to see what's working and what's not. What do we want to keep? What don't we want to keep? I think that you would benefit as a district from having some public opinion research. We think we know what our customers think, but it's pretty interesting to actually do a random digit dial telephone survey and learn with some specificity that many people know this or they don't know that. Because we might be on the right track or we might not be on the right track if we just go by what we think we know. So I think you'd be well served by looking at a telephone survey that would also assess customer satisfaction. I heard from every one of you that you think it's a good idea to be out speaking to groups in your service area. That might be HOAs, it might be a service club, any number of kinds of opportunities. And it seemed to me that that was a good idea. But in order to do that, I think you need to develop some tools so that you can be the most effective. someone, and I honestly don't remember who, said, you know, we're only going to get, if we're lucky, 15 minutes. And that may even be more than an HOA will give you to talk. So we need to have something succinct and something that really describes the district, describes what we do, tells our story in a way that we can all use that same thing, whether we're board or whether we're staff. So I would suggest that you have a suite of presentations, if you will, and they might consist of, say, a 15 to 20-minute presentation, a 10-minute presentation, and I would do some information boards, a couple of boards that you can take with you, because sometimes you are only going to get 5 minutes. So have those boards with you, put them up before you speak. People can come around to look at them, and then you can refer to them when you're making your very succinct and brief presentation. And you can also, you can use different kinds of formats for presentations, but you might even consider having a video that you can show. But not everybody's going to be equipped for a PowerPoint presentation or a video, and that's why you have a whole variety, or a suite, if you will, of presentations that you can use. Now, if you're going to do an effective job at going out and speaking to organizations, it's my very strong recommendation that you develop a formal speakers bureau, and that everyone in that speakers bureau, whether they're board or staff, goes through presentation training so that everyone gets familiar with the presentation and everyone is talking about the same things related to the district when you go out to whatever group you're going to go to. And there are ways to operate speakers bureaus that make them more effective. And that has to do with how you, the forms that you fill out, so that when you come back, you say, I just spoke to 30 people. Here's the general questions they ask. And importantly, somebody may ask you something and they want some follow-up. And that's critical that you follow up and that you follow up quickly. So you're going to want to, whether it's you or staff, somebody has to do the follow-up. So you need to be really organized about this. It's a process, and it can be organized and done well, but you need to give it that kind of effort. I also think you should not wait to be asked to come and speak. Obviously, you can't just barge in somewhere and say, I'm here to speak with you, but you can make arrangements ahead of time, calling groups and saying, you know, I'd really like to come, or some member of my staff would like to come, or a member of my board would like to come and talk with you about what's going on, you know, what's the real scoop here on the drought or the conservation. What do we really need to know? What do we really want to do for the district? Whatever it is that your topic that you're talking about. Now, a lot of organizations are thrilled to have a speaker, because if you've got to, somebody, I think it was one of my colleagues commented that when she was the program chair for her Rotary Club, she said, you don't know how long a year is until you've got to get 50 speakers. So sometimes people are really looking for a speaker and they are thrilled that you called them. Other times, not so much. You know, they may not have time or whatever. But I think it's a good idea to try. I agree with you, with all of you, when you said, you know what, we've got some important things to tell people and we'd like to be out doing it. And I think you can do that in cooperation with your staff. Now, when you go out to talk to people, or all of the things that Lisa and her staff do with your existing program, whether it's the Water Academy, the school program, the conservation workshops, all of the things that you do, it would be my recommendation that you keep a little bit better track of the metrics of that sort of thing, whether it's how many hits you're getting on your website, various analytics for your website, or whether it's the number of people that you're presenting to, the number of people who are participating in your Water Academy. You can look at that as a board periodically, quarterly, every 6 months, whatever works for you and staff. But that way you're going to be able to see how you're doing. You're probably not going to be able to make a whole lot of difference in a year, but you can at least see what you've done every quarter or every year. And I know that your staff looks continually at the programs, your outreach programs that you do now. In fact, several of you weren't so sure about, you commented about events, and you weren't so sure about the payback on participating in community events. And I was talking with Lisa about that, and I know that you, as a board, directed that staff scale back on certain events. So I think you should continue to look at all those things and see whether, you know, where do you want to put your expenditures for public outreach? Where are you getting the best return for that? So I think that's a good thing to continue. So that's kind of my high-level report, and I'd like to hear if you have questions of clarification that you want to talk about, or do you want to go right into, I don't know what, it's like I've got a force field that I move here and the next slide goes. So I'm not sure what that's about, but anyway, I'm a little bit worried about it. Maybe we could have a conversation about what your expectations are, what you'd like to see modified, what you'd like to see emphasized, information you'd like to see developed, materials you'd like to see developed, and maybe I captured everything that we talked about, or maybe not. So this would be a good time to talk about it.
Board? Hearing no one, I have a couple. First of all, conduct public opinion research. I'm a big believer in that. I'm assuming there are firms that specialize in water that do this.
Research firms?
Yeah.
There are quite a few, actually, that do water research.
Does your company do this?
We manage them. We don't do the actual research. There are firms that we work with. For example, I'm working on a project on direct potable reuse. It's a research project, and we had FM3 do our research in Santa Clara Valley Water District service area and the city of San Diego. They do a lot of statewide water reuse. I'll tell you an interesting thing that I learned from them, by the way, that they just recently did a statewide survey on the drought, and unaided people mentioned their concern about the drought. It was bigger than jobs or the economy or anything else. And it was way different than they had seen in past years, just FYI. Kind of interesting.
There's professional companies out there, and I've been.
Yeah, there are firms that know more about water, but you know what? You can also do research in a variety of ways. For the City of San Diego project on the potable reuse project, demonstration project, we had San Diego State's research methods class do a survey for us. So, you know, that took longer. We had to wait a whole semester to go through the process, but.
But a professional researcher knows how to ask the questions, couch
Yes.
them in a neutral manner to get a correct answer.
Exactly. They know how to write it.
You don't get that
and-
with a university class, and you don't get that with staff. A company needs to do it because they know what they're doing, you should hope, or hire someone that knows what they're doing.
Right. Well, the research methods class was supervised by a person who does research for a living too. So, but it just took longer. They had to, you know, it had to be their whole class season. But
Okay, and you mentioned that water's complexity, and I think that my entire issue with going out there, we want to make it simple. We want to
Yes.
get rid of the complex. We want to get rid of the engineer speak. We want to get rid of the, I've been in the water business 60 years speak. We want to get to the general public.
Yeah.
To how much does a gallon of water cost me?
yeah,
You know, very simple. I mean, that's what people want to know. As far as I'm concerned, ratepayers want to know that.
right,
They don't want to know acre feet
right.
because they don't understand it. They don't want to, they don't need to. They don't want to know, well, even we, in a conversation I had like a year ago with some people, I was at a party, and I was talking about, oh yeah, well, you know, there's 766, whatever it is, gallons to an acre foot, and they went, no, there's 1,000. I went, no, I'm sure there's 700. Well, they lived in Escondido, and Escondido used a different measurement. So they can't even figure out one single measurement for everybody to use.
Yeah, exactly.
So you need to bring it down pretty basic, I think, to the general public. That's what they want to know. How can they relate to it?
Yeah. Well,
Not an engineer.
we develop presentations, I know, for people. I was going to just read you some things out of the little report that I prepared, that you all agreed that it should be brief. It needs to be easy to understand, non-technical, and visually appealing. It needs to include your key messages, so everybody is saying the same thing. It needs to focus on what the district does, how it does it, underscore that water supplies are not limitless, so everyone needs to use water efficiently, and it needs to address the costs of service and the fact that if we reduce our dependence on imported water, we're not necessarily going to pay less. So, you know, you had a number of things, but certainly being easy to understand and in layperson language is very important.
Okay, and one last question for staff, and I don't know the answer. We have a great IT department, and we have a brand-new website. Do we have a search engine optimization going on or not? Or do we know how many hits we get or not? And if we do, what do we get? I don't know.
Lisa?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know why we use search engine, because we're not actually looking for customers, because they come to us, but we're trying to maintain a quality of service for the customers we have.
Yeah. As far as the metrics question, the new website does have the capability to do all the metrics, to tell you how many hits on each page and what's the most important and all that. I think once we hire another person to take that over, we'll have the time to actually, you know, pull these reports. We haven't had the time yet to look that up, but we can.
You have the
And we have the capability, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Is that another person in her department or IT, out of curiosity?
that will be
Her department.
PR, yeah. And then the search engine, I don't know if Carla would probably.
Well, I mean, there's a search engine within the website to search the data that's within our website, if that's what you're asking.
No, SEOs, they make your website commonly used. More people will hit it if it's, when they hit water, first thing that comes up is Vallecitos,
We'll look and see.
that type of thing.
We'll have to check and see.
But there again, I don't know if an IT does that or somebody in your department,
Okay.
just curious.
I'll
Thank you.
check, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions? Director Sinella.
And yeah, without getting too far off the topic, are we moving along on this new resource to help us with the website, the analytics, and is that all moving?
It's budgeted, there's a draft job description, but until we determine what the board is and what we're going and where we're heading, I wasn't gonna move forward with filling any positions.
Okay. Patricia, great presentation, thank you. And I know you've been around water and the water business for a long time, and talking to you when we met. I'm a huge believer in key performance indicators and metrics, and we've been having some preliminary discussions for the past 6-7 months on developing those, not only as it pertains to our website and marketing, but just a lot of different things that we do as a district. Do you have any examples that, and not off the top of your head, maybe something you can report back to us or email us down the road, but of some commonly used metrics or examples of metrics that other water districts or other folks that are in, you know, the utility business might use, so we can get some ideas?
Yes, a lot of times they use some of the things that I mentioned, which is 3,000 people have toured the facility over X number of months. 2,500, you know, we did 2,500 Speakers Bureau presentation over the past 10 years or whatever. This many people heard those presentations. Now, the difficulty there is we can know how many people we're reaching. But as to whether or not they're doing a good job of conserving, we have to look again at what the conservation numbers are. So it's not always as simple as some areas. That whole outreach area is a difficult thing to measure.
That's part of the process as we move forward and we develop what the board wants. It would be a case, so you have metrics, so whoever we hire and come in will use their expertise to say, okay, these are the different areas that are reasonably available, and this is the way we would develop the program to obtain those metrics for you.
Okay.
So we won't necessarily be identifying those in the proposal, we're gonna be asking the experts to come back and say, okay, these are the areas. They'll have this information that Patricia's pulled together, plus as we go through the proposal stage, the board will see it, and we'll be working with the board all the way through and saying, no, we wanna see this as well, and that'll just be part of the communication and the development as we go along.
Okay. I also want to just, before we pass the torch here, I want to also just reiterate and kind of piggyback on President Martin's comments. When I first heard about the public opinion poll, sometimes polls, sometimes they're valuable, sometimes they're not. I think in this particular case, because we're still trying to identify what's important to our ratepayers and kind of get a better understanding of their level of understanding of what's going on out there.
Right.
In this particular case, I think it's a good idea. I noticed in your notes here that you'd also noted that there's other ways to get data. For example, doing like an iPad survey when we're at either
Right.
either like public events. And it kind of got me thinking that, you know, when you go to Disneyland, they have the survey takers right when you walk in, and you hate them, they're annoying.
Yeah,
But,
I know.
and you try to walk past them as fast as possible.
Yeah, you kind of don't want to get
We make them
hated,
go
but-
through a gauntlet they can't walk past.
But if we do, since we are going to be adding some human resource assist to this, to the department, maybe that's something that's worthwhile of having a couple of our employees standing in front of a grocery store or something like that. So there might be other ways that the one thing I don't like about polls is they can be expensive. And so we want to try to achieve our goals with this initiative, but at the same time, we got to also be mindful that we don't want to.
Right.
At some point, if the costs get to such where it outweighs the benefit, then.
Yeah, it's not inexpensive, but I will tell you that I think you'd have the best information if you did do a telephone survey, because that is random, people randomly selected, so it's generalizable to people in your service area. I think that the use for other kinds of surveys, either an online survey or something else, those are self-selecting. They're not quantitative, they're qualitative. You can get some information, but you can't assume that because 100 people said this, that means everybody in your service area pretty much thinks that, or 80% of your service area. You can't make that kind of leap. The iPad surveys, one way that I heard them used, and it was really a good thing, was with some folks in Santa Cruz who their desal project has not gone well. But this was a good idea that they were doing. They were going out, and if they'd be at a fair or some other gathering where there were a lot of people, they had an iPad, and they would ask somebody to take this survey, and they would give them some information. They'd actually walk them through, so they'd have to click to go from one page to the next, and they learn something, and then they answer some questions, and then they learn something else, and they answer some more questions. So you're doing some outreach at the same time you're getting some feedback. But it's not, you can't say that it's generalizable to your whole service area. But so these different things have different uses.
Okay. Yep, and then I'll wrap it up by just saying that I think this is a good start. I think it represents at least the stuff that you and I talked about, and captures what my concerns and thoughts and the direction we should go forward, and it would be a good starting point to, you're gonna develop like a statement of work based off of this?
Yeah, what we do is, I think Patricia had kind of the general items at the board. That's what we want to do today, make sure we're headed down the right path. What we'll do is I'll work with Lisa and Patricia to help us through that phase of it, which is, okay, we want to develop an updated communication plan. The communication plan should have certain elements at a minimum. Please feel free to suggest more. We want to look at metrics. We'll be looking to you as the professional to say these are reasonable metrics. Again, we don't want to have metrics that don't provide any value, but we want them to help generate those and provide them to us. We'll look at saying we want the development of probably videos. We may put a time frame, maybe a 5-minute video, a 10-minute or 15-minute video. That encompasses maybe the district and water resources, where the water comes from. The simple stuff that's visual, that's pleasing, they pick it up. We may develop a series of small PowerPoints of 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute length. We'll ask them to develop a scope and a cost for all that. Once we get those proposals back, we'll clarify it, tune it up, whatever we need to do. We'll bring that back to the board. I don't think it'd be a simple workshop at that point. It'll probably be an item on the agenda for the board to look at. You'll have it ahead of time. Okay, is this everything you wanted us to do and you want us to look at? Okay, here's your suite of things to pick from. A video is going to be X dollars, a public opinion poll is going to be X dollars. Now, keep in mind, part of this we can too, and Patricia didn't mention it, but we went through this discussion about 2 years ago when we talked about broadcasting. Remember, Palomar's got a very, very good video and whatever program over at Palomar. We might be able to reach out to them to see if we can do it. They do, you know, they might have some cost, but it might be cheaper than hiring somebody else. It just depends on what the board wants. You can sometimes get mediocre quality for a whole lot less money, or maybe if this is the face of the district, you want to spend a little more money and get a really good quality. So that's what we're gonna do, is we'll put all this into a scope of work. We'll get proposals, cost, timeframes, we'll bring it back to the board, make sure we got it. We'll select the firm and then move forward.
And just along that line, I might want to add that Palomar, like the university did some 4-page color things for the city of San Marcos at no cost to the city, and used them just as is. They were perfect.
Yeah, I think, and
Palomar
again,
may do
we've
the
got
same
lots of
thing.
contacts out there because we're working with them right now with that program. You saw when they did the, what was that thing called? Citizen-centric report. Where the student did it. But as Patricia says, some of this, when you get tied into the universities, it's also a semester project. It's not necessarily
Right.
boom, boom, boom. So that's the decision the board will have to make too on how you want to share those resources, what you want to do. But I've actually already talked to Alan, Dr. Stiles, who you guys have all met. He's more than, because he's the business guy over there, he's more than happy wherever they can get students in their master's program or whatever to help us and get credit, he's more than willing to do it. But that's part of the stuff we'll bring back to you to give us some direction.
Great, thank you.
Does that answer your question, Mike?
Other questions? Director Hernandez?
Yes. You know, the theme I have running through the 5 items here is keeping it simple, that KISS program. In all the conferences that I've attended, the ones that, the presentations that I remember succinctly are the ones that are memorable. They either have great graphics or unique photos or some humoristic tie-in to really capture the attention of the participants and also educate them at the same time. I would hope that we would be able to, once we have determined whether it's a video A, B, or C, or PowerPoint E, F, and G, that we see some examples of others. I don't know that we need to create the wheel completely. We would just like to be unique unto Vallecitos Water District. So the example parts, what are some of the other great water districts that equal us are doing? Would be interested to see metrics, presentations, videos, PowerPoints, just to see what's out there in the world. And let's see, and the poll that's been discussed, you know, what questions have been asked by others that are, I mean, I gotta believe they're all looking for very similar answers, and again, try not to recreate the wheel, looking for examples there.
I can actually, Director Hernandez, get you the most recent one the Water Authority did.
Yeah, yeah, you know, there you go, and one of our other, you know, like Olivenheim, I'm sure they're doing all kinds of different things, maybe not, but.
Yeah, I think the Water Authority's the one that's actually done a poll that got countywide, so
Really?
I can actually get that
Okay.
for you. I'll get
Yeah,
that
so
distributed.
that kind of beginning, so we can launch right into the meat of the
Right.
program. And I'm gonna tag on to what was talked about relative to the university and or the community college, because we have had, and like a number of things, all of this is a 3-legged stool. You got time, you got quality, and you have cost. You get to choose 2, and the other guy gets the other. So, you know, maybe it is a little longer time, but if the quality is good and the cost is less, maybe a semester, you know, we're not gonna show up tomorrow afternoon with this whole suite of, as you called it,
No.
items to go, oh, good, what would you like us to do? We've got, you know, 6 or 10 different things. Well, you know, we could begin a slower process if, in fact, the quality and the economics are better for taking a longer time.
There could be a phased delivery. There could be certain things we do in scheduling up front. It could be that the board realizes, okay, well, because I think we put a separate line item of $100,000 for outreach to develop all
Yeah.
this stuff. I scrapped a number. It was between 50 and 100. I put 100 in there. It could be that some of it is more expensive, and you say, you know what, this is a good start, let's develop these for the next year, come July. Come back to us, talk about some more money, and start developing that. That's where we're headed. We don't have any preconceived idea what it's gonna cost, what we're gonna do anything yet. That's why we wanted to have this, to give you some options.
I'm slowly coming to the realization that the water business is like grinding salt. I mean, it's slow. It's slow. It's slow. So, you know,
It's a legislative process, is what it's called.
Well, the good news is you wanted something non-technical and visually appealing, so I'm gonna offer you Tom. So we've already got part of that done.
we just drag them out,
We'll
put
just drag Tom out.
strings out on like a marionette and let them go, huh? There you go.
Well, you know, and to answer that, it is slow, but understanding, I think, it's slow for a reason. It's not a bad thing. It's slow so that you don't make a mistake.
Okay.
Because if you make a mistake with water,
You're in trouble.
Right.
it's not like putting the wrong light on a street corner. You know, you make a mistake with water, you've got a problem.
It's a good point.
I kinda
Good point.
understand
Do you
Yeah.
have an accident?
Yeah, exactly.
it. Yeah. Yeah, we've had those, unfortunately.
Director Evans, Director Polk? Okay. I was just thinking now, while you were talking about the different opportunities that I've had, just within the school district. So it'd be nice to have those 5, 10-minute, or 15-minute options with the video, because there's all sorts of levels within the school district. It could be from a classroom to a board.
True.
That you'd be able to show, and just, especially, I know it can't happen right now, but if we had something right now, it would be something that could be presented at a board meeting, just to show them something about drought, you know, and where it is. The other part I was thinking about was a historical society. Now, I know it's pretty thin group compared to our customer base, but perhaps it could be something about the history of water, or the history of San Marcos, the history of water, and then it could be a running loop at the historical society, something of that nature, when they do things.
Well,
But-
if I can just interject, something along that line, actually, you could get double duty with a number of things. So let's say you had Palomar and so a student class develop a video on the history. You can place that on your website.
Mhm.
You can put it on YouTube. You can note on your Facebook page that you've got it. If you've got a historical society, you might work with them to put it in wherever if they have a little museum, you put it in there. So there's a whole lot of things you can do with some of these things. They don't have to be a presentation that you would ever make to a group, or maybe somebody would be interested in that
Right.
at some point. But there are other uses, and they can fill many needs at once.
We're gonna have a running loop in the reception area, and
Good.
drive our receptionist nuts. She could go out and give a
Yeah,
presentation.
she may or may not want to be driven,
I know.
but whatever.
Well, I know that, you know, you're talking about the San Diego County Water Authority, but Encina has been, you know, on this for the last couple of years, and Jim, you've been privy to some of the presentations that person has done. This is a guy who's trying, I guess he's involved a little bit with branding, but a little bit with social media. And the amount of information that he gives us back about hits and cross hits and age brackets and this and that and the other. I'm not saying we have to go that deep into it, but it's like Jim was saying, not having to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
A lot of that's.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of it, and that's where you go to the consultant is that helps us. They have a basic concept of the return on investment that you get from Facebook posts, from
Yeah.
tweets, tweets on Twitter. Again, Mike's the youngest in the room, so we have to defer to Mike.
Yeah.
But there's a value to that and there's enough statistics on where people get their information and the hierarchy of where they get it. So I think that's part of what the value is, because you can really, we were talking about this before we came down, let's say the city sends out tweets because there's a road closure. Okay, that's something that's instantaneous, real data time that they get, and there's a value to it. I'm gonna send a tweet out that says the water is 72 degrees. So we have to make a decision on where the value is on that tweet versus other things. Now, right now, we use the reverse call number when we have a area that's out on the home. So we actually send it to them and they get it that way. There's been talk about, well, yeah, but if you send it to them on the way home, they would say, you know what, we're going to dinner because we don't have water at the house and there's no sense going home anyway. Then they would come home. So there's certain value that you get in a certain area and the demographics. The survey that I'll show you from the Water Authority, it showed the 21 or 18 to 30-year-olds, or the millennials, whatever we want to call that group, that is the group that uses that the most, but they're also the group that acknowledges they use the most water and they could do the most things to save water. So there's all kinds of value in there, and I think that's what we'll have to ferret through as we bring all this back to the board, is where do you want to spend your money first? And then we'll keep working through it, because we don't want to wait and develop everything and have you everything at once. We want to develop it and move forward in pieces. So you're going to still have some decision-making to go before we get moving on this.
Well, and if I did that, I agree that if you take that 18 to 25-year-old demographics, they're not paying water bills. Someone's paying it for them. or their renters
That's maybe
or-
why they don't care.
So, and I'm 64. You can tweet all day long,
Until I,
and I'm not going to know about it.
until I kicked my son off, my phone account, he didn't care.
Yeah, there is a demographic challenge there. Who are ratepayers?
Yeah.
Or who the people are paying it? And it's not the 18 to 25-year-olds.
Yeah.
So we're looking at
No,
different.
but just to jump on that, those 18 and 25-year-olds are gonna be 35 and 45, right like that, so.
And when they are.
And they're gonna keep, but they're gonna
You
grow,
need to get to 'em.
but they're growing up with this new age, and people are getting, that's how they get their news.
Yeah, and even further than that, working on the 7 and 8-year-olds with regard to conservation, the same way they did with smoking and litter and all that. The little comment I made, that demographics, ensuring that whenever we decide to do it, that we do have age-appropriate presentations, because.
Yeah, I made a note of that, because that's a good
Yeah,
point.
yeah, and we have to start educating the younger set
Right.
to throw away their iPads.
Isn't that what we spend most of our time now, is the younger ones, the school
Elementary.
teachers?
Lisa's they do a
That's what
tremendous
the
amount of
department
outreach to the schools right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we've got that
I
one
think you got
nailed.
that wired.
Yeah, I think we got that one wired.
I think you really want ratepayers, because
Yeah.
they're the voters, folks.
And there again, that's where
We're
we're
the
after
political
what's
arm.
more responsive to what the board is. I think our regular communication and outreach plan, it's pretty robust. We can always fine tune and improve it, but the bigger picture is what the board wants to do for where we're moving forward, the message you want to get out.
What you could do is though, if you're doing the short video that is based upon age, so it's, let's say at the elementary level, whatever you want to say, second grade to fifth grade, you can distribute that to the teachers so that they can show it when they have time. So I think that's a big deal, because, yeah, we do a lot. We transport them, we take them out, we show them things and things of that nature. But to get it into the curriculum is tough. And I think it fits the curriculum, so I think teachers would be glad to have that. And now they all have overhead projectors on laptops and everything else, so it'd be pretty easy for them to show it to the class. Yeah.
Director Evans?
Well, I would like to say thank you. I thought you did an excellent job in putting the presentation together, and I want to thank the rest of the board, because you obviously did a great job of communicating thoughts. I was very impressed with it. I think your suggestions are well stated, and I really appreciated them. And I agree with the comments the board has already said. I think there's a lot of good comments going here. One thought that came to my mind when we were talking about this is the presentations relating to age. I agree that right now I think they've done a really good job of catching the field of education, and it's always easy for a lot of people to jump into education and get teachers on board, and we're working on that young set. But my feelings would be that our priority at this time in the word is what we said, ratepayers. I would hope we could put some prioritizing on messages that express in a way that the ratepayers can come to agree and understand and embrace it, why they're paying the price they're going to be paying for their water, and why conservation is not just a drought issue. And that, I think, is the one gift as a district we would have if we could develop a system, because there's a lot of stuff out there about what to do about the drought, how to save your money, but it's not, for ratepayers right now, it's not preparing them, I don't feel, very strongly that this is not just for now. This is the future, and we're all gonna be facing this when the new development's continuing, and they're gonna say, how can you develop, we're saving our water, and the truth is, we all have to learn, you get X amount of development, and you're not getting any more water. And so that's where I feel I'm hoping we could focus on that first, is some sort of presentation that is specifically for ratepayers, so they understand how difficult it is to get their water, how much work goes into making it safe, why we're conserving, and that every drop really does need to be used twice or 3 times, or. I would really like that to see one of our primary first. That's just my suggestion. The polls, I think, are great, and I did mention the poll that was done at the Water Authority a while back, and I think the gist that I thought was most amusing was that how many people said the drought was real important, how many said they thought they could do more, but how many didn't want to pay to do it for anymore. That was kind
Funny
of
how
the
that
bottom
worked.
line. It was like, yes, we really, but don't spend any money for supply, and don't spend any money for capture, and don't spend. So we have some working on that too, but the polls are really critical, and there's different reasons for different polls. I like the idea of the iPad where you could actually present information and gather information.
Right.
I think that's a great idea. So.
Right. Yeah. There's
And
various ways.
although I'm not a tweeter myself either, I do understand that's the future.
Yeah.
And so forward thinking as this
Don't say
board
that.
is, we will probably come up
Somebody
with
should.
a new program entirely.
Well, you know,
Google Maps or something.
I was, when we were talking earlier, I was saying that we've had wonderful luck. We have been supporting a project in San Francisco, the Water System Improvement Program, which is, you know, billions of dollars of refurbishing the Hetch Hetchy system. Twitter is a great way to get information to reporters, to elected officials, and the elected officials will retweet it. And we also have looked for groups that have a Twitter account, and we follow them, and we send groups in the area, we send information out when the roads are being closed, when, you know, something else, you know, some emergency happens or whatever. It's really great. But, you know, you may or may not have that kind of use. I'm not saying you should not ever send anything out or post anything on Twitter. It's just that there's some areas that really, really, really is effective. And
Well, that's gonna be a learning process, I think, for us. So I'm kind of anxious for us to set some priorities on what one of these we want to do first.
I have a quick question on the iPod usage thing. It sounded when you explained it like a push-pull. And we give them an iPod, we give them some information, then we ask them a question. We give them the iPod, we give them some more information, then we ask them a question. That's a push-pull. That's we're giving you the information we want you to think about when you answer this. That's a terrible form of gathering information.
well, it's one, I mean, it depends on what you are gathering the information for. They used it and felt like they were doing a good job of giving people information about desalination and what the process was, and then getting their feedback on, I can't remember exactly what the questions were. It is one thing you can do. I don't think it's the only thing you can do, but it is one thing you can do.
If I could add, I don't know if it's the same one we're talking about, but the one that they talked about at the Water Authority was one where you're asked a general question, they get an answer from you. Then you read through the process, so you, like, if they ask how you feel about desal, or would you want it? And then after you've gone through the process and answered at the end, you've changed their opinion, one way or the other. Some people still hate
That's a
it.
push-pull.
It is a push-pull, but I think it's very valuable, because what it tells you is how many people are willing to change with information, and then your job is to present the information. And I think that sometimes the information we think we're presenting doesn't have any effect, but with something like that, you present the information, they answer it, and they learn. I think there's some validity to that.
I've only seen it used in the political world, and a telephone call like,
Nothing works
Bill-
in the political world.
Bill is an axe murderer. And the question is, what is Bill? And you immediately go, axe murderer. I mean, that's politically, they do a push-pull. So I'm just saying, I'm not a big believer in push-pull.
It's like he's buried in grants too.
Yeah.
Director Evans, I think what we do when you talk, I think we've got a pretty good idea of the board's priorities, what you want to do. So again, what we'll do is we'll develop the scope. We'll we'll make it very clear in the scope, this is what we want you to propose on. The priorities will shift depending on what where the board wants it. But that's something the board will still have the opportunity to look at when I come back to you after we've obtained proposals. And we'll show it to you and say, okay, here's who we have. This is what each of these components are. What do you guys want as your priority, and what can be done concurrently, and what do you want done first? So that decision is yet to be made.
Director Hernandez.
Relative to the proposals themselves for the individual items, are we gonna solicit RFQs for those individual items?
There's enough firms that we know of that are of value that we're just gonna go to them directly.
Oh, okay.
I have to go to at least 3.
Yeah, all
I
right.
prefer to go to 5.
All right, yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna throw out there on the poll too, because I'm still trying to grasp it, but I think we have enough data with the recent polls that other agencies have already paid for to get kind of a general sense of where Southern Californians and San Diegans feel on water and the drought, and a lot of that's already been released to the media, so we've all seen it. I was hoping to use, if we do a poll, we can ask, since if we're gonna do one, we can ask a lot of questions, but I'd like to be more specific about VWD.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, customer satisfaction kind
Definitely.
of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could probably learn a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so next is action steps, right?
Yes. So, that's,
If
Suggesting-
I'll step in now if you don't
Okay.
mind. Yeah, again, like I said, what we wanted to say was to make sure the board, because we presented the companion that Patricia put together, see if there's something else that the board had thought about after you've read this and see your priorities. And I think what she itemized as the recommendations, and they're pretty much captured what the board's after. I've got about 15 items written down here on specifics of what you want to see. So what we'll do now is we'll develop scope of work. Patricia will help us getting through that, so I'm guessing within a week or so, we'll probably actually have a pretty good RFP and a scope of work developed. I don't know how, from the community that you work in, how long it takes to actually put together a proposal for one of the things, so I'll have to work with that. An engineering proposal, we usually give them 30 days, because it takes a lot more work to put one of those together. Maybe this kind of thing's a 2-week event for you guys, I don't know, so.
it ranges.
Yeah, I think it just ranges on what's in there, but then once we have those, we'll get those. We'll check if they're responsive or not. We'll schedule to come back to the board. So, okay, based on what we've got, this company appears to be responsive to what we're after. Here's the suite, here's the costs, here's the schedules. What do you guys want to do first?
Personally, I would like to see not only your recommendation, staff's recommendation is approved, but the others that were submitted. We do this all the time. It's interesting to call back, I'm sorry you didn't get it, and then we interview and have a breakdown and didn't dot the I or cross a T or some silly thing. But looking to see what is out there in the world, I find that very enlightening.
I would caution, at least think, if we're going the way of a poll, that we do that with immediate haste, because we're moving into the silly season.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't want this confused as a political poll going out there, which people will start confusing it. I forget the filing deadline date, but hopefully we can get it done before then, because that's when the silly season officially starts.
Yes, I say, we'll move forward as rapidly as we can on this.
August 8th.
Too late. We're too late. August 14th, that's the
You may
drop
wanna wait
dead.
till after
We're never
the
gonna get this thing done.
We
RFQ.
can get a poll done.
No way.
Oh, we want to have a firm
Not
selected
even-
before
not even
mid-August.
that. Not even that.
At the soonest.
No.
I'm sorry.
We'd be lucky if we're actually out on the street by mid-August with the proposal.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
But,
Troublesome.
I'm sorry.
but to Jim's point, and I'm the new guy here, so, and I know we don't typically do branding statement of works, but I would like to see the 3 agencies that are gonna, or groups that are gonna propose, I'd like to see a formal presentation of what they're proposing by all 3. I don't know if the rest of the board feels that way, but that's the best way to accomplish what Jim's asking for. And I tend to agree with them.
I will,
Because otherwise,
I mean, how do I say this tactfully?
No one will apply it, it's not worth it.
I understand what you're saying. All I can say is from a caution, from a standpoint, when you start comparing one person's scope to another person's scope, how they do it, you've gone through this procedure before in acquisition and in contracts. We do engineering proposals, we bring the firms in and we do the proposal. That's after we've gone through a first cut. You know, we don't bring everybody, we go through the first cut to see who's responsive, and then we interview those. If that's along the lines of what you're talking about, that is,
I'm thinking, you know, these are, I'm assuming you're gonna go to some sort of marketing and branding
yeah.
companies,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, they probably make sales presentations every single day. And so they're gonna put something together to, if they're in the marketing business, they know how to market themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they probably have some templates already put together, some ideas, some prior customers' experience. I don't think we're asking for too much. This does not seem like it's gonna be an inexpensive undertaking. It's gonna, at the very least, be in the tens of thousands.
Oh, I think it'd be a lot more than that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be conservative. So it's, I think it's worthwhile, and if they want to be the marketing firm for Vallecitos, they should come and we can limit them to 60 minutes each or whatever we want to put on it.
Are you gonna be putting the board in the position of selecting the firm based upon that?
No, I
and
just
then
think,
negotiate?
I know, but to see what they have to offer and then we could provide some feedback.
It's up to the board.
Director Hernandez.
It's interesting, because as I said, and both Director Polder and I have been on selection teams, and, you know, they have the 30 people show up and put in its qualifications, and you narrow it down, you get to the short list, and I think that's what Mike's talking about, a short list of 2, 3, 5 at the
absolutely.
very most, and those are the ones that you want to hear, because in my opinion, this is a dance that we're gonna be doing. And we're gonna step on each other's toes. And my analogy is that if we're gonna finish this dance, we wanna know that if one of us steps on the other's toes, we're not gonna be flying off the handle. So in that sense, seeing and hearing and understanding who these folks are, I think is a beneficial practice. And to answer your question directly, I'm not afraid to make a selection as a board member.
Director Polder?
Well, I think it's means and methods, so that's why we have a manager. And I think we have to give him direction. It would be the same as letting a contract for a job. If we're gonna interview everybody that applies for the job or makes that final cut, I think we're getting into the wrong sausage here. I think it's something we're here to give direction, set policy, so we're here to give him direction to the general managers, telling him what we want, we're trying to define that scope. He brings the group that he feels is the best, and then they could certainly interview with us. But anyway, that's my opinion.
If I can interject something, I'm gonna be the minority on this, I'm sure. But hearing what everybody wants on this board and hearing the amount of money we're putting to it, we should make our first presentation how your board spent over $100,000 to give you this 15-minute presentation. The board, we're not out there looking for new customers. We want to deal with the ratepayers we have. That's all we have. We're not out there soliciting to get someone to move to VID to us. That's why branding's not important, but it's important to let people know what they think of Vallecitos and what kind of job it's doing. $100,000 is the budget, and I think that we're never gonna go over that, in my opinion. That's a lot of money, I think, for what's gonna end up being, and I'm glad the whole board's participating. We all have our own thoughts, and we all have our own ideas. And come November, there might be different people on the board, and they'll have their thoughts and their ideas. And that's a forever changing target. And everyone presents things a different way. Mr. Hernandez is known for his humor. He's gonna wanna present something with humor. Someone else, Mr. Z, is not known for his humor. He's not you're gonna personalize this thing as you go through it. Everybody will. So I think, getting deeper and deeper and deeper into this woods, we're creating a monster. 100,000 was the budget, that's what we need to stick to. And if we can get Palomar to do it for us, that's great, but I don't see us going out and hiring production companies to put together this 3-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute spot. It just, at some point becomes cost ineffective. But that's my opinion, and if I remember correctly, Mr. Hernandez and I are the ones that started pushing this thing in the beginning, but now it seems to potentially be getting a little out of control. So if 100,000 is our top end, then let's not go for Radio City. Let's just go for a piece.
And that's why we'll bring you back options of what this stuff costs. You tell me whether you want to move forward.
Because if we do 5, 10, 15-minute for 3 or 5 years, that's just, if we did 8 of these, that's 12,500 each. That's not a lot of money. So.
No, but it's a lot of money when you look at the accumulation of it all.
Well, that's what I mean. So, the prioritization and the understanding of which ones we want to spend, whether it's 12 or 15 or 20, we might just run out of money.
It could, and it could be, you may
So we
pick
might have
things
to
for the
take 2 or
first year
3
and say,
years.
this is my priority,
Yeah.
but we want these, but it's over a multiple year
Exactly.
process.
Director Evans, please.
Thank you. I feel like we're getting caught up in putting the cart in front of the horse. I don't think at this particular meeting it's important that we go out and say, we're going to have a presentation by the top 3 or not. I mean, I feel like personally, and I thought that was what we had expressed, at least it seemed that's what Patricia thought we had expressed, that basically we think our district and our staff are doing a great job. I commend what we already have. And my hope was that we would improve it in the sense that I feel like it doesn't address the ratepayer. It doesn't address the ratepayer's understanding of why their rates are going to continue to go up. And it doesn't matter what year it is and who's being elected. We aren't going to have the privilege of saying, oh, we're going down because we love you. They're not. And I want them to understand they're going up because we love you. We're supplying you what you need. And I want us to be able to also get them to understand we live in California, and California has droughts and it has floods. That's where I feel there may be a disconnect. On the second part, this district, board members have not, up until now, until this board, gone out and done presentations. And this board has said, we would like to do presentations, whether it's 1 a day or 1 a year. We would like to have presentations. It doesn't sound like our first choice is to run into elementary schools and do a thing with the kids. It sounds like we want to talk to the ratepayers, the people who we really make decisions for. So I would like to say, can we set the poll aside, and can we set this massive mastermind, and can we start with what we have, and can we say, what is it that we have can we work with? That will get us on track. Maybe it won't be perfect, but it will get us going, and then we will have a 5-minute or a 10-minute or 15-minute to go out and do the basics, which is, this is where your water comes from. We do not need a brilliant $20,000, $30,000 person for us to find the information with our staff to do that. Where does it come from? Where does it go? Why are the rates going up? Why do you pay for reliability versus dependability? That's what I wanted. I think we've just stuck the cart in front of the horse.
Director Hernandez.
And I think we need both the cart and the horse.
We do.
I think getting this information in front of us on whether it's 3 or 5 or 8 items, the whole scope of what we're talking about, and then we can determine, well, okay, here's what it's good. This is, if we had all the money in the world, this is what we could do, but the most important thing is X that we all have agreed on. And that the item X that we all agreed on is going to be done in a professional manner by somebody, some group or some organization that's going to put the best professional face on our district that we can.
I agree, but it might be the staff that can do that. I don't think we've ever really asked our staff
It
to
could be
do
very
what
well
they've
be.
never heard us ask for this.
It could very well be, Director Evans, but you may recall, we've kind of come forward 2 or 3 different times at the workshop with the board. We kind of started to show something that was a generic what we had. We didn't get past the second slide before the font, the graphic, and everything else was criticized. to be perfectly honest. And I'll tell you, the staff walked away from that very dejected, from our outreach standpoint. We do a lot of work, we do a lot of very good outreach, we do a lot of very good work already out there. The reason we're going through this process right now was the engineering or the outreach committee wanted to do it. The board said no. In the workshop, we said we'll do it as a board. Okay. In the workshop at the strategic meeting, we started to show a generic, hey, this is some of the information we have. We made it to slide number 2. When I finally said stop, because it was being critiqued at that level by the board that, well, we don't like the font, we don't like the picture, we don't like the message, too graphic, too much information. Okay. Lisa's a marketing major, that's what she does. So we have the staff to do it. But obviously, I was not getting the gist of what the board wanted, either being hard-headed, I disagreed, whatever the case may be. So where we're at today is, after what I've been told, is bring somebody in, which is Patricia. Okay? We have a long-term plan and we have a short-term. I agree completely with you, Director Evans, that what we probably have, we can fine-tune through a combination of staff, plus a separate set of eyes looking at it that has the message of what you're trying to get to. Because I get the message, you're trying to get to the ratepayer, what the water cost, what the facilities cost, why it's going up. And there's a lot of things we need to do in the future, and we need to start telling you about it. So I get that message. I think that's very strong. I think whoever we bring in to help, we're going to bring them in to help Lisa to fine-tune what we have. Whatever we do have, we can reuse. We will. But that's going to be in that proposal. I can't go out and say, okay, we want to do this and get this message with what we've got. That hasn't worked, to be perfectly honest. So that's why we're here today, which is to come up with a scope of what your priorities are. That will be added in, because I agree with you. We already have a ton of information on what we do, how we do it, that can be tuned to get to the ratepayers. But again, I'm going to look through some outside help using our support to get there. That could be the first priority in all of the things that we pull into you. They say, okay, do this first and get moving, but let's now work through all these things too. They have to be, it's got to be a plan. We don't want to do something here that when we get to item 5, we've got to go back to item 1 and fix it all the way through. I think you can get things in steps as we go. It doesn't have to wait 6 months to get everything at once. I think we can do it in a phased approach.
Just say one thing, yeah, that was, the admonishment to staff was really bad and terrible, and it wasn't really meant that way, but I think it did come out that way. But we did the same thing to a fellow board member. He went out and he put together his own little thing, and he gave his presentation here. We didn't like the picture, we didn't like his humor, we didn't like his, I think you're gonna find that, no matter who you bring in, the 5 of us aren't gonna agree on it.
I agree. I agree.
You know, there's gonna have to be some give and take, and in your mind, how you can modify it to fit what you wanna give as your presentation.
Absolutely. I agree.
Go ahead.
And I hope that wasn't interpreted that whoever comes up here is going to be the quintessential marketing group and leave staff.
No.
I had never in my mind envisioned that staff would not be an integral part
they
of
have to be.
whatever's going on, because even when I did, Lisa knows, I said, hey, I need a little this, that, or the other, and bingo, bango, bungo, it was right there. So working with staff in conjunction, because we just heard today, they don't have enough time to do all the things they have to do or want to do. So trying to wedge in another big project like this without support or some other help is just, I would never.
That's exactly why we've got
I
another
wasn't
person in the
asking that.
budget.
That's what it
That's what I
sounded. I was simply saying, it may be staff, you know, what I'm hearing is we're already spending time deciding how are we gonna interview for this, what was the word, branding or something. And I'm saying, I think we're putting the cart, first you start with what you have and you see what they need. You don't say, oh, we have to jump over here. I definitely think staff, I'm all for them having help. And I'm all for an outside source, so I must have misspoken, because that wasn't what I was saying.
No, I understood what you were saying.
What I was trying to say was,
I'm good with it.
I want it to be whatever we need to do, but I don't want to spend our time right now deciding, does Dennis and staff pick the person, or do we do the presentation?
I understand, I got your point.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was trying to say.
And my understanding is that this firm that we're gonna possibly bring on is gonna develop and design and develop some tools. That was what it all started. And then they're probably, once we make a decision, or the district makes a decision, when I say we, to choose to purchase those tools, And once they're provided, it's gonna be
Then
all
it's us.
staff. It's
It's
all,
all
it's
us.
all of us. They're
Yep.
gone.
Yep.
It's, so they're not, so we're not paying for an awareness marketing service. It's a one-time.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. I think we're just using different words at this point, to be honest.
Well, just to add one thing, I think that Director Evans has it 100% correct. The electorate, the ratepayer,
Mm-hmm.
the electorate, same thing. They're the ones we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And if we started us off, we was talking about someday we're gonna be moving into direct, indirect, and they're gonna, and to be honest, and I don't mean to make this sound bad, you get a really good interview on Channel 10. But I remember you as the guy that works for the water company. I remember the chief as, he was a fireman, because he had a fireman's outfit on.
Yep.
But I remember Bill Horn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's the elected official, it's just the way life
Sure.
goes, and they put his name under him when he's on there.
Yeah.
So, the people, the idea of having us go to the electorate rather than staff, and the same reason, in my opinion, we don't go to the kids, that's a great staff job, you know, but I think we need to go to the electorate, they elected us, they wanna hear from us. That's
No,
my thought.
I'm on, everything I've written down is exactly what you've talked about, which is to get to the ratepayer, to get it understood, something that you all can use as the board to get out. So I'm good on all the items, and I understood what you were saying, Greg Roberts.
Okay.
Yeah, I got what you were talking about.
Anything else?
So unless there's anything else for Patricia, I mean, what like I said, we'll do is we'll get this nailed down to a
Have
scope of
anything
work.
else? Do
I
you have any
think
other
we'll have to,
questions for
maybe
me?
the boards can have to readdress the interview process. And if they want the top three to come in, do the dog and pony show, that's fine. We'll say, well, to Mike, like you say, the new guy, it will be a first for the board to have made that selection. But on the other hand, this is a face you're trying to put on the district for the board to your ratepayers, so maybe it's appropriate.
Right.
And potentially developing a presentation that we will be giving. So I think we're a little bit more.
A little more
intimately
vested in this than me
involved in
hiring an
this than we
engineer
would
to build
normally.
it. Yeah, I agree. So again, like I said, I think if that's the case, we'll develop the process to do it, give them their 15 minutes in fame, they come in. I don't think you'd make a decision right there with them, it'd be selection afterwards and then we
Of course,
award.
yeah.
But I think, like I said, you're putting the face on the board to the public, so maybe this is the appropriate time to actually put the board on the interviews. So we can get to that when we get there.
Patricia, thank you very much for all of
Thank
your
you.
input, all of your time. When I met with you, you were awesome. And I think what you put together for us was really a great direction to show us which way we probably need to go, considering it's like 5 cats. You know, and you're trying to get us all, because we all have different opinions on what the perception should be. So
Sure.
it'll be interesting, and I can't wait for you to see the final product, how it comes out, and see if it's anything like you imagined it. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm good to go with direction, and we will move forward as quickly as we can. Once we actually pull schedule together, I'll send a schedule out to the board on kind of the dates of what we're doing. And we'll keep moving forward.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. With that, we'll adjourn.
Thank you.
Short, sweet, too.
Oh, let's reopen it again. I have to apologize. We did have a couple of things on here that someone might have, with any comments, commentaries from any of the board members? No, then we're adjourned.
Okay.
Then we're adjourned. That was on the agenda.
Those other comments.
Yeah, other comments, other things.